So my name is Jason Carpenter, and I'm the Adult Service Specialist here at the Bethel Branch Library of the Clermont County Library. And today we're at the Bethel Historical Society and Museum. And we're talking with Judi Adams and Susan Barger. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you.
Now, what are your ladies' roles here at the museum?
I'm Judi Adams. I'm the president for the last 7 years. And there we go.
It's a lifetime position, she's finding out. I'm a trustee, and all around, we're all around, do everything here.
Do everything.
Cleaning, and just putting up the displays and talking about the artifacts.
So how long have you each been involved with the museum then?
Actually, we both joined at the same year, but we didn't know each other. 1998.
98.
So what are the hours of the museum?
We're open the first and third Saturdays of each month from 1 to 4 p.m. However, we also do special group tours. So,
Just call our number and we'll fit you in the schedule and take you on a tour.
So when did the museum originally open?
It was formed in 1972. A group of local businessmen and interested people in the community got together, and they decided there was a need to start preserving the history of Bethel. It hadn't been done before, but they created the Bethel Historical Society and started gathering artifacts that people would donate. They'd bring them in and just donate them to help with the cause. So.
In one little room of the Grant Memorial Building. We just had one little room.
So how many members do you have now?
We have over 150 active members, and we have, our meetings every month, they're attended by 15 or 20 people, depending upon how the weather is, I think, but, we have a well-organized group.
Has there been any recent updates, big news?
Oh yeah, and we're happy to share those with you.
Well, we acquired the building a year ago, 2 years ago,
Yeah.
in February, and we've expanded from 1 room to 8 rooms.
Well, and even before that, like I said, in 1972, the Historical Society was formed, and they had a good membership built up, but over the years it dwindled. And about 7 years ago, there were only 5 active members of the Historical Society. And the last year, they couldn't even get a quorum. Susan and I would always come to the meetings, but the last year that it was only 4 people at a meeting, and it wasn't enough to have a meeting. So, like Susan said, we had a rebirth. We decided we're either gonna make this happen and get more active members, or it was going to dissolve.
And Frank and Walt wanted to retire. They had been handling this for many years,
Right.
and they wanted to retire. And so we got word of mouth around and got a group together and elected some officers and wrote a constitution or bylaws. And
Yep.
we were off and running.
And within no time, we had built that membership back up to over 100, just by getting word of mouth out and a lot of support. And that's when we decided, okay, we need to revamp the museum, because we started opening cabinets and pulling out drawers, and we were finding items that were they were so much a part of Bethel, and they had been donated over the years, but we had no idea who they came from, where they came from. Some of them would have a little note attached to it or a little inventory card, but not much. And just this cabinet behind us, just as an example, that area right here, this cabinet, was the military display. That was all we had at that time. And we started finding so many things that had been donated.
Boxes of uniforms
And
flags and
they were
medals.
in closets and in the basement and stored in the old outhouse and back of the building. We found so many things that we knew we had to expand that. So then the military exhibit expanded to this whole wall in the museum. we expanded it that much in just like a month. It was, the guys all got working on it and made it happen. And now, one of the greatest achievements I think we have is that we purchased the building, like Susan said, in 2019 from the village of Bethel. And then we were able to start expanding the museum into the whole building. I'll tell you what though, it took a lot of work, a lot of effort.
Blood, sweat, and tears.
We had so many people that gave their time and talent, I mean, day after day after day of putting this thing together. We even had some National Honor Society students from Bethel Tate School that came and did volunteer work to get their service hours.
We used their muscles.
We used their
Young
muscles and
muscles.
their youth
Yeah.
to bend down and haul things. So that was a great achievement when we bought the building, when we were able to expand the museum.
We started to categorize things better, and like we have upstairs, we have a whole room dedicated to the schools, the Bethel schools, and one of the great treasures we have are Bethel journals from the 1940s up through 1970s, so people can come and just sit at a table upstairs and look at Bethel journals, see wedding pictures from back in the 50s and 60s, and we just found some microfilm that has Bethel journals that date back to 1902.
1902.
And we were able to find a microfilm machine, I think, or a projector. We're hoping to get them transferred onto discs, but right now we have a projector where you can sit and look through the microfilm of old Bethel journals.
And just do research. And what was funny is that we have never been able to find any pictures of our building when it was being constructed. I mean, this building was started in 1929 and it was finished in 1930, but we have never had any pictures of the construction. And through Mike Fancher, who is our current head of the trustees, he was able to go on those old Bethel Journal films and find information, and one of them talked about in 1929 where there were 17 steel beams being hauled in, and they were 31 feet long. And so we're starting to find that information, and he's having a ball with this.
We hope to find some pictures of it being constructed, because we haven't, but that
It'll be in there, that's what.
yeah, we're hoping it'll be in there. We can have a display of the beginnings and the present of the Grant Memorial Building.
So.
Very nice. So do you have any big upcoming plans or events?
Yeah, we do. We have actually, we have an annual fundraiser, and that money that we get at the fundraiser is what, that's what we spend for operating expenses for the building every year. So this is our 4th annual, and it's been very successful because until we had the first fundraiser, we didn't know if we could afford to own this building and pay for it. I mean, just to keep the lights on and the heat on. But with community support, we're able to do that. So,
Great.
yeah.
Do you each have a favorite exhibit or a particular item you like?
I don't know, I love so many things here.
Show them the doll.
This is a very unique item, and this was loaned to us by one of the original members, Ray Gelter. He found this down in Kentucky in an old cabin, and we think it belonged to a runaway slave, and that was hidden or hiding in a cabin down in Kentucky. And can you see it? Mm-hmm. This is one of my favorite things, and Ray Gelter has been so generous in loaning it to us, and so that's one of my favorite things.
And just a side note, Ray Gelter is our vice president, and he is the only active member from the founding
original
members
group.
of 1972. So he has been a big help in this. But there's so many things that we're getting in that's new, and it's so exciting to have people come in and they look at things and they think, I've never seen this before, or I never knew this happened in Bethel. They didn't know we had a shoe factory in Bethel, and we had a broom factory in Bethel. We had a factory that made washing machines.
The washing
and
machine, we have
and the
an
wagons
invention
and-
here. That was a washing machine that was invented in Bethel by Mr. Dietz. And there's a duplicate of that in the Smithsonian Institute.
Yeah.
We had 7 dairies in Bethel. We have a display of the different milk bottles from the various dairies.
Yeah, we're very fortunate that we were able to find those, because some of them are just, they're very rare to find a glass bottle, but we have them from every one of the 7 dairies now. And so that's a new display this past year.
The shoe factory is a new display.
The 3C camp.
The 3C camp, we have some items from that. That was over on the south side of Bethel during the 1930s, and they built Burke Park Shelter House and several bridges around town.
Yep.
And paid whatever the 3C people did, but they put people to work in the 1930s.
Yeah, a lot of,
Well, would you ladies like to take us on a tour?
sure.
So now we're going to start our tour of the Bethel Historical Museum. And Miss Judi and Susan are going to show us around. This is the entrance.
Yep.
Our prized possession in this room is the clock that originally was in the Bethel Bank, and it dates back to 1900. And when Key Bank closed last year, they gave us this clock. So this is one of our most prized possessions. It hung in the bank from 1900 up until last spring.
year? Yeah.
And over here in the corner, we have a display from the CG&P Railroad. There were 2 railroads that came through Bethel, and they closed in 1935. It was the Black Line and the Cincinnati, Georgetown, and Portsmouth Railroad. So we have a lot of items pertaining to that. But this is all, we have a little gift shop here in the corner selling some items, and we like for you to sign in and register, and we have some other literature about the museum. But this is our main lobby.
So this display is of the old banks in Bethel. The Bethel had 2 banks, and they were both in the same building. The Bethel Building and Loan and the First National Bank of Bethel. And there is a picture here that depicts the bank offices being in the one building that's on the opposite corner from our building. And in the picture, you'll notice that there are a lot of men, and they're all wearing overcoats. However, it was summer. There's a woman walking across the street with short sleeves on and the leaves on the trees. But the story goes that there was a gang of bank robbers that were coming up the river, and they were coming to rob different banks in all the little towns. Bethel got word of it, and all of the money in the community was right there in that one building. So all the businesses had their money there, all the people that had money, it was there. So the businessmen got together, and all of them were carrying shotguns and weapons, and they were guarding the money. They were guarding their bank. And you know what? It worked because it wasn't robbed. It's just a story. It's a story as we know it. Okay, so this is our Glen Burke alcove. Mr. Burke was a resident of Bethel, and he moved to New York and made a fortune in real estate. He never forgot his roots. And when he died in 1966, he actually sent the village of Bethel some money to be put in a trust. So the Burke Trust started with $500,000, and it was to give scholarships to high school students, take care of the park that is named after him, Burke Park, in our town, and also for the upkeep of the oldest cemetery in Bethel, the Pioneer Cemetery. So that trust fund still goes on, and they're still using it to do good in our community.
This is also the room of famous citizens who lived in Bethel, that's what I call it. And Obed Denham, who was the founder of Bethel back in 1798, he came up from Kentucky, or from Virginia on a land grant. We don't have a picture of Obed Denham, but we have his family Bible that dates back to the 1700s. Of course, the Grant family is prominent. Bethel, Jesse Grant, Ulysses' father, was Bethel's first mayor. Ulysses never lived in Bethel, but his mother and father lived here. In later years, Jesse had a tannery, and Ulysses and Julia Grant came to visit, and one of their children was born here in Bethel. Another famous citizen is Dr. Thompson. He practiced medicine from the Civil War up until the 1940s. We have his cabinet with all of his instruments, and we have other prominent doctors, and we had a female dentist. We have all of their items. We also have a nice display on the Burke family, and Thomas Morris was a United States Senator, and we have some of his things. And they were all, Obed Denham and Thomas Morris were advocates of
They were abolitionists.
abolition.
Yes.
That's the name I couldn't think
We
of.
knew that, yeah.
And so this was the room that the museum started
This was
in.
the room
This
that
is
the
the
museum
room.
started in.
Yeah.
Very
And
nice.
you know what, we want to tell you too, with Doc Thompson, he practiced medicine until he was 102. He was the only doctor who still practiced up until that age in the whole United States. He was the only one.
He was a
practiced.
Civil War surgeon.
Yeah, we have a
And
picture
he-
of his birthday cake with 100 candles
He
in it.
died in the early 1940s, and he was still practicing medicine then. From the little room, we got the big room, and this was
This one.
this was the museum when I joined.
And me too.
These
In
two
'98, this was the museum.
And this was packed solid.
Yes, it didn't look
Packed
like this.
solid with things.
So our goal, like I said, about 7 years ago, our goal was to get all of these things that were packed in here
Spread
and get them
out.
on display so that people could see them. So needless to say, we closed down for a summer and we had everything in the middle of the room. It was an unorganized
We did a
mess.
inventory.
We started doing inventory, which hadn't been done.
Crawling
So-
around in 90-degree weather.
Yeah, but you know what? We did it. It was a start. And there were only about a dozen members who were able to come up and do this, so, but we did it. Okay, so, this wagon, I have to say, this was, one of my proudest moments is when we were able to move this wagon in. It was actually a challenge to get this in here, because it wouldn't fit through the doors for one thing. It was about 6 inches no matter how they tried it. So we found a company that handled heavy equipment, and the owner came and looked at it. It was stored in a local barn, they came and looked at it, and he said, you know what, this thing comes apart in 3 sections. He had enough knowledge. This whole bed is one piece, and there's only one bolt holding the axles together. He took out the bolt, the axles came apart. It was the neatest thing in the world
They
watching
carried
them
it in
unload
piece by
this and
piece.
getting it in. So they actually brought it in 3 pieces and put it back together, and we haven't moved it since. So, it's here to stay.
Shortly after we acquired the wagon, we got some other modes of transportation. Excuse me, the sleigh, and then down at the other end we have a pony cart. And it's just recently, this mode of transportation is this little wooden wagon down here, and it's so cute because it has a handbrake on
Has
the
a
back
little
wheel.
handbrake, yeah. So,
We just got this a couple months ago.
but the wagon is, the little pony wagon is very unique. You know, we figured that the driver would sit up here and the children, 2 children, maybe 3, depending upon the size, would sit in the back. And, so that was a great, contribution.
A vast assortment of tools, farm tools. Bethel is a big farming community. We have items from the old Bethel Hotel, the switchboard, and locks and keys from the hotel, sleigh bells. We have an electric meter that was on the building when it was built. We had a gal here from Duke Energy. When she saw that, she just said, oh, I've never seen anything like that. And she did some research, and it's one of the first electric meters that was ever put on a big building.
And this is a very unique item. We are so lucky to have this. This is a water main. And when the street department, a few years ago, they were replacing some water lines and they were digging up the street, they found this. And you can see at one end it's fluted and it's hollowed out all the way through. But this actually came from the village well to Jesse Grant's tannery. That's where that came from.
That's just,
So-
that's wood, right?
It is made out of wood, and we are very fortunate. It's amazing that it's in that good of a shape.
And it's very heavy.
It is very heavy. Milk bottle display.
That's, yeah, there's all our milk bottles from the 7, 8 dairies that were in Bethel at one time. That big item on the end is a cream separator. And this area up here we call our fancy area and homemaking area of back in the old days. We have clothing and jewelry and hats and all kinds of items that were really, if you look close, there's some really pretty things, hat pins, and a beautiful quilt hanging up there. That's what you call a crazy quilt. It was just made from scraps of material. It dates back to the 1800s. We have Bibles. You wouldn't believe the Bibles that people would bring in, family Bibles, so we decided to make a display out of them, and some of those date back to the early 1800s.
And this is Janet Bick's wedding dress. Janet and Bill Bick were educators here in Bethel for a long time. We have our elementary school is the William Bick Elementary School, named after him. So she donated her wedding gown, which we love. She was actually a 6th grade teacher in this building, right here in this room at one time. The school was overcrowded, they needed extra room, so they made a 6th grade class here and another one upstairs. So we were very happy to get her wedding gown.
That dates back to the early 1950s, and the wedding gown on the left dates back to the 1930s. That belonged to a lady named Farngrover, who was sent to us.
Now this is the washing machine that Susan mentioned earlier. Dave Dietz was the last owner of Dietz Furniture Store here in Bethel before it closed about 10 years ago. And his grandfather invented the Boss washer, which is one of the first wash machines ever invented. And we have the documentation here out of the Cincinnati Inventors book. So we were very happy to get that. I don't think I'd want to use it now, but we're happy to have it here in the museum. Broom factory wasn't at the edge of town. This is a broom making machine.
The broom factory was in Broomville.
Yes, right at the edge of town. And then this is the shoe factory display that we just got last year.
Last summer we put it together.
These windows were found underneath the building just last year, and they are the actually 2 of the original windows from the factory, and they were in a crawl space, and they were covered in 50 years of dirt and sludge and everything, and it took some time to get them cleaned up. But then we started gathering things together for what made this beautiful display. They also gave us some shoe forms that they found, some wooden shoe forms, and heels for shoes.
They were buried in dirt down in the basement.
Yeah.
They were absolutely filthy.
And a box top. They found a box top for a shoe box. This is the pair of shoes that was from the baby shoe factory that was in town. We have a picture of the building. It had since burned down, but this woman in this picture worked there. She was the one that was
Her name is on there.
I can't read it. I don't have my glasses, but anyway, she was the one that started the broom factory, or the shoe factory. And that pair of baby shoes.
Edith Harrison, South.
Okay. And she was the
Which
one.
was very unusual for a female to have her own business or factory.
And so her daughter came in here a couple years ago and brought us that baby picture of her wearing that pair of shoes that was made in that factory. So that was wonderful. We were glad to have that.
This is our 3C camp display. This desk was used by in the offices at the 3C camp. And this past summer, we had a gentleman come in and he brought all these pictures. His father was the commandant at the camp, and he and his sister attended first and second grade in Bethel back in the 1930s. And he brought in all these pictures that we had never had before of the goings-on of the 3C camp, which was on the south side of town. But this desk was, the Ben Franklin store had it up in their attic, and they gave it to us, and even had some envelopes in it from 2nd Platoon Company K, 1st Ohio Infantry, Bethel, Ohio. So people just give us this stuff, and we love getting it, you know.
Yeah.
Now, what is a 3C camp, for those who might not know?
Civilian Conservation Corps, and it was a put people to work organization that Franklin Roosevelt did in the 1930s. And they had barracks over there that they stayed in, and I don't know how long. I think it ended when World War II started. But that's my only information. I'm not too.
And here's what was interesting. I wanted to make sure I got my fact right, but the men were paid $30 a month. And all of it, except $5 to $8, had to be sent home to their family. They were allowed to keep $5 to $8 of that money, and all the rest had to go home because it was to support their families during the hard times. So.
But this gentleman that brought us all this stuff in the last summer, he had movie film, and he just brought us a whole box full of goodies. This is our early settlers room. A lot of the items here were from the log cabin that used to be in Burke Park, and they tore that down, and it was filled to the brim with old household items. We have a yarn spinning wheel and a flax spinning wheel. We have a rope bed, a beautiful old quilt, lots of cooking items, butter churns, kraut cutters, all kinds of things. Most every home had a fancy parlor that they never went into except for a funeral or a wedding or when company came, and that's where all the good stuff was. We have some ladies in beautiful old dresses serving punch, and the punch bowl and cups date back to the 1930s. They were used by the women's organization here in Bethel that was very active, and they would have teas and gatherings here at the Grant Memorial Building, and that's their punch bowl and cup. The other items were just donated by various members of the community. So this is our fancy parlor.
So we wanted to give honor to the veterans in our community. And one way to do that is to create a permanent display with their names, their year of service, and the branch they served, and give them honor to have their name on the wall here. We call it the Stacks of Honor, and it's to honor all the brave men and women who served from our community. So there we go. Up here to the American Legion room. When they were building this building, the American Legion did so much to help make this happen that they actually gave them a room in the building. So it's like the world's first condo. The American Legion owns this room. However, they are letting us use it for a military gallery, which we're very proud of. And if you remember, I told you that the original military exhibit was just in that corner cabinet. This is what it has become in the last year. We're very proud of this. So we have exhibits that start with the Civil War and go all the way around. We have every war, every military conflict that the U.S. was involved in. And we have a peg leg, a wooden leg from the Civil War. We have a 126-pound cannonball over here in the corner. An ammunition box from the Civil War. Just
Draft posters where they were trying to get people to join up for the Civil War. These are all originals. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
One of these flags, and we haven't figured out which one yet. We have to take them apart. But one of them has 49 stars, and it was made between the purchase between Hawaii and Alaska becoming states, which is very unique. And I don't think there's very many of them around. But all these items were donated, all these uniforms, by veterans here in town.
We do have a 20-star American flag. It was designed in 1818 and it was made in 1820. So Mississippi was the 20th state. So we're very fortunate to have that.
And somebody's collection of model airplanes. So we have all kinds of interesting things in here. Samples of all the uniforms from all the different eras. I would say our World War II collection would be the largest collection we have in this room. We have a lot from World War I also. And
in the cemeteries, you'll see the veterans have a plaque stating what war they served in. And one of our members got the idea, because we had a sample of all these plaques, but he got the idea of putting them on trophy stands so we could properly display them. So we do have all of that. The Vietnam era, we have a Green Beret uniform that Joe Forrest was the only Green Beret from Bethel High School that graduated from Bethel High School that was in the Vietnam conflict. And then Bill Essex. Bill was a retired Major General. He was actually a 1969 graduate of Bethel. And when he came here last year and saw our museum of what we were doing, he lives in Texas now. He actually donated some of his uniforms and some of his artifacts from his years in service. So we are very proud to have Bill Essex display here. He was in the Air Force, and like I said, he went in right after school and retired a Major General.
so this is our reference room. All the cases have samples of articles of businesses that were in Bethel at one time or other. And our main focus in here on this wall is Steve Newman's display. Steve Newman, the world walker, who was an active member of our museum. We have his shoes, his camera, his backpacks, a map of his trail around the world. Took him 4.5 years. And if he's ever here, he loves to talk about it. And he will be here, but he has so many interesting stories to tell about his 4.5-year expedition. He's the only person to walk around the world, and he's a Bethel hometown boy.
Of the businesses then and now, we were saying.
Right, so we have samples of pencils and pens and ashtrays and calendars advertising their business. The Deeds Furniture Store we talked about downstairs, back in the 50s, they gave this little cedar chest with a lock and key to every girl who graduated from Bethel High. This was Rosalie. She graduated 57, and she just donated this. They gave it to all the senior girls.
And we have an original booth from the Blue Haven restaurant that was here for years and years in town. Best home cooking, and as the apron says, best pie in town. So that was a new one. Susan did this display, and you just did a beautiful job. This is of different things in Bethel School, the royalty, Bethel royalty.
They had twin sisters back in the 1920s, and they were star basketball players. They scored more points than anybody ever in the history of the state of Ohio. So we have some little pins and trophies. We have their picture. We have a tiara from a homecoming queen that happened to be Judy's sister. She came from a big family. And here's a picture of homecoming court in 1952. And my husband and his twin brother were attendants to the queen. And then this is old programs from graduations, and some of those date back to the 1890s. So these are just, you didn't have to be a big jock to be in this case. You had plays and other things that the high school band.
And then we have the letter sweaters and varsity jackets, cheerleading uniforms. This is a recent find. It is a diploma from one of our members, or one of the local residents, Dale South, from 1902, his high school diploma. And it's in great shape. All that's missing is one of the borders on the side. So
all the yearbooks, and when you come to visit, people love to get out the yearbooks and look at them. And then, like I said before, our biggest treasure is our Bethel journals over here against the wall, and you can look at those.
And this is the machine we were talking about that Mike found to do all of those older Bethel journals that are on microfilm. And I'll tell you what, that was a treasure too, to try to find that even.
And we have big albums of pictures. We have thousands and thousands of pictures. And some are identified, some are not. If you wanted to come and look and you had recognized somebody, we welcome you to put their name on there so we know who they were, because so many things have not been identified.
And we call this a research room, the reading and research room, because there is so much you never get done. Every time you're up here and people pull something off the shelf and start looking, we learn something new too. You know, so we love it. We love it when people come up and point things out to us. So
this set of wicker furniture was given to the museum when it opened. It was in, we don't know what room, we're assuming it was probably in the main lobby, but there's probably 15 or 20 pieces to it, tables and side
little
chairs
and everything. So it was donated by a local business owner here in town when the building was built. So in 1930, it was placed in here. So
I was going to see if it said who donated it.
We are fortunate to have that also.
Our music area, Bethel had a town band. We had pictures of the band. We have an old uniform. That was back in the probably early 1900s. And Bethel is a town of churches. So these are items from various churches in town over the years. This quilt here was made by high school students for the bicentennial in 1998.
So what are the hours of the museum?
We're open the first and third Saturdays of each month from 1 to 4 p.m. However, we also do special group tours. So
Just call our number and we'll fit you in the schedule and take you on a tour.
yeah.